Hello everyone, it's me Karan Thawani. Welcome to my YouTube channel Embedded Easy. I hope you all are fine and doing well. First of all, I really want to thank all of those people who have given so much of support and love on my first YouTube video, which was on Modbus RTU protocol. So this video is on a practical guide on serial peripheral interface, that is SPI. So let's start this session. As you can see that there are no slides in this presentation because a lot of good information is already available on serial peripheral interface on the internet. So I have downloaded a very good document on the SPI which was shared by the Texas Instrument. So let's open that document. Yeah. So this is the document, this is a technical note, a user guide by Texas Instrument on serial peripheral interface. So first of all, I will tell you what SPI is. So SPI is also a part of a kind of a serial communication, and it is also a master slave communication. So same like Modbus, SPI is also a master slave communication. That means master has the authority to start the communication. That means master can only start the communication. So these are the pins of the SPI communication. I will explain you the pins. This is the SPI clock. Now it is very important to note that SPI is a synchronous communication. It is a synchronous communication, that means all the data transfer on the SPI bus takes place with respect to the SPI clock. So all the data transmission which takes place is with reference to this clock. So this is the SPI clock. Generally, the devices which are compatible with SPI communication supports SPI clock up to 50 megahertz, 60 megahertz or 100 megahertz. It depends upon device to device. So it varies from device to device. So this is the SPI clock. After then, this is the SPI SOMI, that means serial peripheral interface, slave output, master input. So this is the slave output pin. Assume that these two devices are connected through SPI bus and they are sharing the data. So this is the SOME pin, that means slave output master input pin. So the data which the slave wants to send to the master will be shared to this pin. And this is the SPI SIMO, that means slave input master output pins. So the data which the master wants to send to the slave device will be sent by this channel. So these two are the data channel and this is the clock channel. SOMI channel is for sending data from slave to master. As the name suggests, this is the slave output. That means slave will send data to this channel and master will receive data in this channel. And slave input, master output. So master will send data on this channel and slave will receive the data on this channel. And finally the last pin is SPI chip select pin, CS pin. This is generally a active low type pin. Active low type means by default this pin must be tied to high voltage level, and whenever we want to communicate with any device which is in the SPI bus, we need to pull down this pin. So whenever this pin is low, then and then this device will accept the data from the master, it will decode that data, and according to the data it will give data to the master back. But for that this pin must be low. So a high to low transition is required whenever we are communicating with any device if we are using this chip select pin. So you must be wondering why this pin is required. This pin is required whenever we are connecting multi-slaves with the same bus. Suppose there is another device, a slave device 2, and this device is sharing the clock, the SPI SOMI pin and SPI SIMO pin. That means these all pins are common in the device 2. So now suppose master wants to talk to the slave device 1. For now assume that this is the slave device 1 and assume that there is one another slave device which is slave device 2. Now suppose master wants to communicate with slave device 1. Since whenever the master will send the data on this channel, this is master output channel, whenever master will put data on this channel, then this data will also be received by slave device 2. So how we will differentiate that whether slave device 1 has to answer this request or slave device 2 has to answer this request? So the chip select pin helps in this case. This there is one another chip select pin on the master side. So the chip select pin is different for all the devices which are connected on the SPI bus. Suppose there is SPI device 2, for that device clock will be common, SPI SOMI pin will be common, SPI SIMO pin will be common, but chip select there will be another one pin from the master which will go to the slave device 2. If suppose slave device 3 is also there, so clock and all data pins for slave device 3 will be common, but this chip select pin will be different. So when master wants to talk to slave device 1, it will pull down the CS pin of slave device 1 only. So in that case the data is on the SPI bus, but the chip select pin of other device is off. So device 2 will not respond to this data because the chip select pin of that device 2 is off. And when master wants to talk to device 2, then master will lower the chip select pin for the device 2, and for device 1 at that time this pin will be high. So whenever the master wants to talk to device 2, it will lower its chip select pin. At that time no other slave device will respond. So this is how the chip select pin works. So these were about the pin configuration of the SPI communication. Now a very important thing which I want to clear right now is that there is no rule on data frame for the SPI communication. If you know about the Modbus protocol, then specific frames are there in the Modbus protocol. Let me open my first presentation and I will guide you to the people who are new for the Modbus protocol, people who doesn't know about the Modbus protocol. So I will just show the data frame for the Modbus protocol. Yes. This was the data frame for the Modbus protocol. Suppose there are two devices in the Modbus protocol, then master has to send this specific frame: slave ID, function code, address, data, CRC. But there are no specific rules in the SPI communication regarding the data frame. Means all devices which are communicating in the SPI network, all devices works according to their manufacturer. means manufacturer are free to decide their own set of rules for the SPI communication. There are no specific rules for SPI communication regarding the data exchange. So we have to look the data sheet of the device with which we are communicating in the SPI communication. Now few important things about the SPI communication. Yes, these are the two important things regarding the SPI communication, and these are the properties of the clock. So there are two properties of the clock. Number one is clock phase and second one is clock polarity. First we will talk about the clock polarity. So clock polarity may be high or it may be low. Similarly, clock phase, it may be high or it may be low. Now, what a high polarity clock means? A high polarity clock means, first we will talk about the low polarity clock. We will go with the flow of this document. In this document, first clock polarity low is explained. So I will explain the clock polarity low first. Clock polarity low. So here clock polarity is low. Clock polarity low means by default state of the SPI clock is 0. If clock polarity is 0, that means by default state. What is meant by default state? By default state means whenever the device is not communicating, means in the rest condition the clock is at low level. So clock polarity 0 means by default clock is at low level. So now you can get that what a clock polarity high means. This is the clock polarity high. 1 means high. Clock polarity high means you can clearly see that by default state of the clock is 1. So by default the clock is in high state. So clock polarity defines the by default or the ideal state of the clock. If it is 1, that means the ideal state of the clock is 1, and if it is 0, that means the ideal state of the clock is 0. Now I will explain the clock phase. Clock phase defines the phase difference between the SPI clock and master output. If clock phase is 0, that means the clock and data, this is the master output data, clock and master output data both are in phase. I will zoom this part so that it will be more clear to you. So you can see that clock polarity is 0 means by default state of the clock is 0 means low. Clock phase is 0, that means there is no phase difference between clock and master output data. It can be clearly shown in this timing diagram that there is no phase difference. This is one clock cycle, a high and low. This means a complete one clock cycle. This is the complete second clock cycle. This is the complete third clock cycle. So you can clearly see that the first data, it is sync with the clock. Second data, this is also sync with the clock. Third data, this is also sync with the clock. Now some important conclusions regarding this mode of the SPI when clock polarity is 0 and clock phase is 1. It is important to note that this is also known as SPI mode 0. Clock polarity 0 and clock phase 0 is also known as SPI mode 0. Now some important conclusions regarding this mode. First is that data is output on the rising edge. This is regarding the master output data. You can clearly see that master output data takes place on the rising edge of the clock. And uh, one thing you have to remember that the output data by the master and input data which is sampled by the master, both are always 180-degree apart. That means if suppose master is outputting its data on the rising edge, that means master will sense its data which is coming in on the master input pin. Master will sense, or it will latch this data on the falling edge. These two operations are always 180-degree apart from each other. You have to remember this point. Now we will talk about the SPI mode 1. SPI mode 1 means clock polarity is 0, but now clock phase is 1. Now, since the clock polarity is 0, I have explained that clock polarity means by default state of the clock. Clock polarity 0 means by default the clock is at 0 state. But in this mode, that means in the SPI mode 1, phase is 1. Phase is 1 means the clock is 180-degree delayed from the data. You can clearly see that the clock is delay and data is in advanced state. So this explains, or this shows the phase difference is 180-degree between the clock and the master output. So clock 1 means clock phase 1 means the SPI clock and master output data both are 180-degree phase shift with each other. Now some important conclusion regarding this mode, that is SPI mode 1. Now what's your input regarding the data of the master? Whether the master is outputting the data on the rising edge or on the falling edge. In the previous example, data and clock and data both were on sync. So it is clear that master is outputting its data on the rising edge of the clock, since there was no phase difference in this mode of the SPI. But in the mode 1, there is a phase difference between the SPI clock and data. So what's your input regarding this point? What is your conclusion? Now let me tell you that in this example you have to assume that before this rising edge there must be a falling edge here, since the phase difference is 180-degree between the date clock and the data, so there must be a falling edge here. Let's took this image on the paint so it will be easy for you to understand this point. Let's see this example more closely. Now you can see that in the phase 1 the clock is 180-degree delay from the data, so you can assume that there must be a falling edge here. This is not actually, but we are assuming this. So there must be a falling edge here like this. You can see that in the second stage there is a falling edge and then a rising edge. So you can assume that here also there is a falling edge. So now it is clear that when the master is updating its data, data is updating on the falling edge. So in the mode 1, or when the clock polarity is 0 and clock phase is 1, then master is updating its data on the falling edge. Now I have told earlier that the data update on the this output pin and data sample on this input pin, both are 180-degree apart. Since the data is updating, master is outputting its data on this rising edge, so it will sense or sample the input data on this edge, that means on the rising edge. Data is master is updating the data on the falling edge. Sorry if I have spelled it wrong earlier maybe, but let me clear it once again. Here master output, master is updating its data on the falling edge, because we have to assume that there must be a falling edge here, and master is sensing its data or sampling its data on the opposite edge of this. If it is falling edge, that means master is updating is sampling its data on the rising edge. So this was all about the SPI mode 1. Now we will see the SPI mode 2. This is the SPI mode 2, in which the clock polarity is 1 and clock phase is 0. Just a minute. So this is the case when clock polarity is 1 now, but clock phase is 0. So clock polarity 1 means by default state of the clock is 1, that means high. It is clearly visible here in this timing diagram. This by default state of the clock is high. So clock polarity is very simple and it is clear now for this mode. Clock phase is 0. Clock phase 0, this is also very simple. Clock phase 0 means there is no phase difference between clock and the data output of the master. Data output of the master is in sync with the clock. So in this example, master is outputting its data on the falling edge. It is clear in this timing diagram, and master is sampling its data on this rising edge. On this falling edge, master is updating its data, and on this rising edge, master is sampling the data. So this was all about this SPI mode 2, and some important conclusion which I have already discussed. Data is output on the falling edge. So it is clear that data is output on the falling edge since the phase is 0. Phase 0 means there is no phase difference between this clock and this data. These both are in sync with each other. Input data is latch on the rising edge. So as I have told, these both are opposite. Data is output on falling edge, then on the opposite edge, that means on the rising edge it will latch the input data or it will scan the input data. So this was all about the SPI mode 2. Now SPI mode 3. So this is the SPI mode 3. SPI mode 3 means clock polarity and phase both are 1. Just a minute. Okay. So in this example, clock polarity is also 1, clock phase is also 1. So what it means by clock polarity as 1? Clock polarity 1 means by default state of the clock is high. Now clock phase is also 1. Clock phase 1 means the clock is 180 degree delayed. This is the 180 degree phase shift, means half cycle. clock is 180-degree delayed from this data. So this is 180-degree, that means half cycle. So what conclusion we can made on this timing diagram? The conclusion is clock polarity is 1, means by default state of the clock is it 1, clock phase is 1, that means the clock is 180-degree delayed from this data. So data start here but clock starts after 180-degree. So similarly, similar thing which we had done when clock polarity was 0 and clock phase was 1, similar thing we have to do here. We have to assume that there must be a rising edge here. So now we can make conclusion on this mode. That means in this mode master is outputting, MO means master output, master is outputting its data on the rising edge. So this is here, master is outputting its data on the rising edge of SPI clock. So what about the input data? Input data is latched on the opposite of this. Opposite of rising edge means input data is latched on the falling edge. This is the falling edge and you can clearly see that sample in receptions, that means input data is sampled here. So this was all about the modes of the SPI communication. So now I will guide you about some practical aspect of the SPI communication. As I have told you that there is no specific data frame in the SPI communication. So what a programmer needs to take care when he is dealing with a device which is having SPI communication. So all we need to take care is that first we need to read the data sheet. From the data sheet, two things are important to get. First thing is SPI clock and second one is the polarity and phase of the device with which we are communicating. Now with this thing is very important to note that the SPI clock is specified in the datasheet of the device with which you are communicating, but sometimes this clock polarity and phase information is not directly given in the datasheet. We have to see the waveforms which are given in the datasheet and we have to decide from that waveforms or from that timing diagrams which SPI mode is there with that device. Suppose a device with which you are working supports the SPI polarity as 1 and phase is 0. So you have to configure your master device SPI clock polarity as 1 and clock phase as 0. If you misconfigure your master device, then your communication will not be done. You cannot communicate with that device if you are not configuring your device with the right configurations. So you need to take care about the clock polarity and clock phase. I hope this polarity and phase part of the SPI communication is clear to you. So basically there are two things which are important for a software developer who is working on the SPI protocol. First thing is clock, the maximum clock which is supported by this device. Suppose this is the slave device and it supports the clock up to 10 megahertz. So you cannot communicate with this device with the clocks which are higher than 10 megahertz. This device will not function properly with the specific if we are operating this out of the specification. First thing is clock, and this parameter is very easy to extract from the datasheet, but we have to be very careful when we are looking for the SPI clock polarity and clock phase. in the datasheet of the slave device. We need to be very careful. If we interpret it wrong, then we will not be able to communicate with the device. So it is very important to extract the correct data from the datasheet. Let's have a practical example. Let's open a datasheet of a device who is working with SPI protocol, and let's try to extract this information and let's try to understand these parameters. Mm, there is one FRAM IC, ferromagnetic RAM IC, and it is used for storing data, and it is non-volatile memory, means data will be written in the device even if the power supply is not there. What was the part number of the IC? That was FM, yes, FM25 FRAM IC. Oh, internet connectivity is not there. Sorry for the interruption. So let's have a look onto this device. Extracting information from the datasheet is very important. So those people who are new on this field, uh, I have a very good advice for them, is that they need to start reading the data sheet and they need to start practicing on how they can extract information from the data sheet. So this is the data sheet of a device. This is the memory IC, ferromagnetic RAM, and it works on the SPI protocol. That means it uses SPI protocol to store the data. So the first information is the clock frequency. So this device supports the frequency up to 40 megahertz. So as I have told that this parameter is very easy to find out, and also the SPI modes are also specified in this document. So this memory IC supports SPI mode 0 and SPI mode 3. So this device supports both of these SPI modes. Now it is important to note that some of the devices do not mention the SPI mode directly. They will tell you that the data is sampled on the rising edge or falling edge. So you need to go to the timing diagram of the SPI mode, and from that timing diagram you have to figure out the correct mode from the information which was given in the data sheet. If the time is there, I will show you one example also in that application too. But first, let's have a look on this device. So this device supports SPI communication. This is the chip select pin, this is the clock pin, and this is the serial data input pin, and this is the serial data output pin. So serial data input, that means master will send the data on this pin, and this pin will outputs it data here on the SO pin, serial output pin. So now we will look on the timing diagram of this device. This is the information which you can read. We will focus on the SPI part of this device. You can clearly see that the importance of the chip select pin, which I have told you earlier. The clock and the data lines are common to both of these device, but chip select pin is different. This is chip select pin 1 and this is chip select pin 2. So suppose master wants to communicate with this device, then it will lower the chip select pin of this device, and chip select pin of this device is high. Since chip select pin for this device is high, this device will not take part in the communication. So this device will not take the data from this bus. Only the device which is having chip select pin as low will take part in the communication.